Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining today's IRIS Prep Talk. These sessions are designed to introduce teacher education faculty to resources developed by the OSEP-funded national centers. Today, you'll learn about some important resources from Cizzle, the Center for Innovation, Design, and Digital Learning. I am Sarah Simone, IRIS Center's Technical Assistance Coordinator, and Naomi Tyler, IRIS Center's Project Director, is also with us today. We'll be monitoring the chat in case you have any questions or issues. Please note this session is being recorded for those who are unable to attend live. You can check out all of the IRIS Prep Talks on the IRIS Center's YouTube channel. During today's session, the presenters will provide some information and background about Cizzle, and then they'll discuss some ways that they provide support for faculty. At 1:30, we will wrap up and share some final information, and then we'll keep the Zoom open for an additional 30 minutes to continue the discussion informally. This will be a good time to ask any specific questions about platforms or applications that you may have. And now I'm excited to introduce Drs. Fulcini, Scruggs, Zimmerman, and Vasquez, who will be sharing resources related to educational technology supports for faculty.
Thanks so much, Sarah. Really appreciate the introductions and welcome to the Cizzle Center. Before we go off this slide, I want to point the attention of our audience to the upper right-hand corner. We have a QR code, which is a needs assessment. We're actually trying to engage our audience as much as possible. And this is one way to get feedback for us to provide services for you. So Angelica, can you go to the next slide, please? So here's the magnificent team that we have. It's a partnership between two universities, University of Kansas and University of Central Florida. We also have a partnership with CAST, and our external evaluator is the Materi Group with Cheryl. So these are the great people doing some great work. We also have an army of doc students and colleagues across the nation that are helping us develop blog posts, community events. And so we really hope that you will join us at the Cizzle website, which is ciddl.org. So let me give you just a quick primer on what Cizzle is. As Sarah mentioned earlier, our whole purpose from the center, from the Office of Special Education Research, is to provide awareness and training and support for faculty members in the special education teacher preparation program area, as well as our related service providers. We're really trying to hone in on some of our related service providers because there's so many of them that don't really have an opportunity to interact with us historically. So we're really trying to do our best to share and develop the community and the connection across preparation programs. And to start us off with this conversation, we really kind of want to see where the field is, in your opinion, of how faculty and staff feel about integrating technology into our program. I can just give you a quick primer of what it's like at UCF, and maybe Katie can talk about what's happening at KU. But at UCF, we have kind of two ends of the spectrum, right? We have some technology folks that are on the cutting edge of research, talking about artificial intelligence, simulation, we're looking at machine learning. And then we have folks at the very far end of the spectrum where they don't even know how to open PowerPoint. So those are the areas that we're trying to serve, and everything in between. So take a second, use the chat and tell us, what are your experiences at your school, while Katie talks about maybe some of the experiences at KU.
Hi, thanks, Trey. So at KU, we also have that range of faculty. And I would say some of us, we just had a learning management system transition from Blackboard to Canvas. And so we have spent a pretty hefty amount of time at KU trying to figure out, how do we move these things? How do we reasonably keep the engagement in our class? And then how do we take advantage of the new tools? We also have folks who are looking at ways to incorporate technology to support us children and students birth through adulthood, as well as how are we enhancing our technology within our institution. So I would say some of us are in that middle row of images where we're feeling confident. At times, I think I might be overconfident. And then we have folks who are leading the way as well. So I think that variability is probably pretty common for a lot of the folks joining us today as well.
Thanks. Angelica.
Yeah, so I just wanted to start by showing you another QR code that you see down on the side. This is our QR code to join our community. Our community is a huge part of Cizzle and a really fun way to communicate with other people in the field in higher education. This is a great place to come to share what you're doing at the beginning of a semester, or if you're looking for a resource for a new class that you're teaching, you can have a conversation with many other individuals. And this is an even international group. We have people from all over the world part of our community. We also like to share Fun Friday favorites, which is just a question that we post that starts a conversation. It may be about AI, it may be about IEPs and your recent interactions with those and what you're seeing going on inside the classroom, in the schools, and higher education, and K-12. So please join our community. Take a chance to scan that QR code and connect with us, and then also help support other individuals in the field.
So I wanted to take a moment because I think we have a couple of folks in the chat that are responding, and it's really great to see that, yeah, we have folks that are engineered for paper and pencil, as well as some of that new thing called ChatGPT. We have a few blog posts that we've done and some video short clips showing you how to integrate maybe ChatGPT into your curriculum. We also have a conversation within the community that Angelica was just talking about, where we're trying to figure out as a community, how do we support the instructional pedagogical sequence? And then how do we support students with disabilities? And there's so many avenues. A lot of the times the knee-jerk reaction with new technology, especially disruptive technology like artificial intelligence, is to ban it. And we at Cizzle don't feel like banning is the right way, because banning is like saying, I got to get rid of the internet, which is not going to happen. So how do we use this disruptive technology and potentially use it for our benefit? I have some examples where professors are leveraging ChatGPT to have students create a response, and then they critique the response. For example, if you have someone who is writing a paper and you have ChatGPT write your essay, well, it's a machine. It's going to get things wrong. How do we have a conversation about proper APA citations? How do we have a response or an opportunity to say, you know, this is existing knowledge, but it doesn't tell you anything new? That's where humans come in. And that's where it's really exciting to have these conversations. And then on the student use side, we have students who maybe have cognitive deficits or physical limitations that can't type as fast as someone else. Well, ChatGPT in 3 seconds can produce just as much text with a really good prompt. So there's a lot of exciting conversations being had and opportunities for us to continue that conversation in the future. And let's see, Katie, did you have a response for someone on the chat?
I did, but I put it right in. So
Okay,
for yeah, Lynn, who's transitioning to Canvas, same as my niece says. We have a community member who's posted a lot of resources from Australia. Her unit and faculty there were able to find quick tips and tricks. And so I've used that, and it's been invaluable, and I was able to access it for free just by joining our community.
Yeah, and I would really encourage our folks, really, our primary focus at the center is to obviously increase knowledge and adoption of technology. And so it's a great opportunity for us to post tips and tricks and opportunities for us to give examples and non-examples of how they integrate technology into their courses. And so we're really excited about that for the future. And, you know, when we look at the use of Cizzle's website, we're really focused in on these 5 real big strategic alignments at this moment. We're looking at how do we strengthen the digital backbone, and that really reflects, Katie, like you were talking about, to the LMS platforms. It also talks to the fact that we're integrating brand new tech, assistive technology, et cetera. We want to obviously improve student experience and have flexible options, right? We're really interested in how universal design for learning can be integrated within technology. How do we support students with cognitive needs? How do we support the cognitive load aspect of some of our daunting, you know, assignments that are on a Canvas LMS type thing? Those are all great assets that we're trying to do. We also want to look at, you know, how do we understand student segments and the assignments? We have the capacity with LMS programs, which are things like Canvas or Workday, et cetera, where we can capture as instructors back in data of how students are spending their day on our classes. We can see how often they log in, what kind of pages do they gravitate to, Does that inform my decision as an instructor to say, oh, well, my students are really spending a lot of time maybe on these blog posts. Perhaps I should do that more within my class. Or maybe it's not. I'm not getting the kind of engagement I want. Maybe I need to provide a different alternative assignment or give them a choice of different assignments, which is what technology affords us the opportunity to do. We also have two more other things we want to talk about: enhancing, our strategic enrollment. We have a brand new map that we've put on our website, which allows you to see the different personal prep programs across the country. And it's a dynamic map. It allows us to make decision points based on if I want a private school or a public school. It'll filter that out. If I want a HBCU or a minority serving institution, it'll filter those out and give you within your geographical range where those programs are, what the annual cost of living is, the cost of attendance. So we're trying to forward that opportunity for others, but we also need your help in making sure that data is right. So we took public available data and scraped those websites across the nation to filter this into the map. But sometimes that public available data is not accurate. And so as colleagues in the fields in your schools, we could really use your feedback on whether we got all of the information right. And then from a DEIB perspective, we really want to make sure that we're expanding our partnerships. We want to strategize our mission critical functions and respond to challenges with focus and agility. There's a few states that are having some real difficulties, Florida being one of them, where DEI is an issue. And so how do we continue to provide excellence and support for our most vulnerable population? And then how do we as instructors leverage technology to fight that fight?
Yeah, and so as Trey was sharing, even within the chat and folks who are joining us synchronously or folks who may be joining asynchronously, there's variability in the human condition, and there's variability in each of us as faculty's experiences and comfort level with technology. And so our goal at Cizzle is to be able to support faculty in higher education who are focused on educator preparation. That's from our Part C area, birth to 3 and related service providers, up through all of the Part B services, again, with our related service providers. But we recognize that as higher ed faculty, we are interested in technology and enhancing technology in our instructional design, like Trey mentioned, and trying to incorporate the framework of universal design for learning to support variability within our classrooms and educator preparation candidates or our related service provider candidates. But we also recognize that as faculty, we have our own set of glitches and systems with technology that we need to use on, quote, the back end of our job so that we can be successful. And so we are going to recognize both of those places and recognize that each of us have strengths and supports in a variety of areas. And so the first challenge that we have noted for the field is virtual practicum. So if folks can share with us in the chat, I know that a lot of us are having to experience, particularly related to the COVID-19 pandemic, changes in practicum. Perhaps we're in areas where practicum placements are limited, or we're excited to get our educator and related service provider candidates into a practicum. Perhaps it's not safe or feasible or logistically possible, for example, in the state of Kansas, for our practicum supervisors to drive to all of those placements. And so there's been a large focus in our community and in our space with Cizzle over the next 2 questions that are about to be shared. And so if you have some expertise or advice or thoughts on these areas, we'd love to see them in the chat. So the first place is, is anyone who's joined us today engaging in virtual practicum? Great, thank you, Trey, for being able to support that in the chat as well. And then we also want to consider, should we be engaging in virtual practicum? Is it an opportunity? It looks like Debbie, yes, has some virtual practicums. And so we want to better understand ways as a center where we can be the facilitator or the hub of faculty who are engaging in this tricky place of, how do I provide meaningful feedback? How do I provide meaningful experiences? Is this a place where perhaps my institution needs to go to broaden the diversity of classroom-based or home-based or community-based fieldwork experiences? I know there's some folks who in our community are really focused on how do we use mixed reality with virtual practicum. Perhaps we can't get all of the planned experiences that our educators want, or related service providers we may want. And so how can we do that? So there is an early childhood with virtual practicum in a way that maintains high.
We have a few technical glitches with Dr. Zimmerman, but I kind of want to ask the audience. So everyone's talking about a varied experience. Some have used virtual practicums and others have not. And we have a couple of folks on the chat who are saying they had, but they gave them up. Were there any reasons why those things happen? And then if others that are experiencing using AI, I'd love to hear that, Debbie.
Hey, can I unmute? Can you hear me?
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, okay, so we were actually using immersion. I don't know.
Oh,
Yes, I know you know immersion. Okay.
I know immersion well.
Yes, absolutely. So we started with immersion. We are very fortunate. We actually have a fully online elementary education program for a BSCD, fully online elementary ed, BSCD. If that sounds crazy,
that's great.
it is. And so, but we are using a lot of the AI immersion. And then of course, because our candidates can be anywhere, literally anywhere. Now we're in our building process. We're flying the plane as we're building it. However, I do have candidates in Texas, and as much as I would like to go to Texas to do a site visit and observation, not possible. So we utilize the platform Go React. We found that it's been very easy to integrate and very easy to use as far as some virtual. And then it just also allows, if something happens, or if we can't get out to that field placement, then it gives us a backup plan if something were to happen. We've had a lot of success with Go React. And then with the AI with immersion, it's just a way to get candidates' feet, maybe walking in that puddle a little bit before they're out there, and they're in that very safe space. So both have been extremely well received by faculty and candidates. So we got to push forward because numbers are important in higher ed right now, and we've got to find a way that we can try to help this teacher shortage and then get folks out in the field and get them working.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Debbie. Sandy, you had a really interesting challenge with the rural school districts. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
We had some technology with the rural districts, not as much as we would have had a few years ago, probably. But the bigger challenge is we have at least one district I can think of that won't allow cameras in the classroom for any kids. And so that made it particularly challenging when we were using Go React. And so I love a lot of things about Go React. The thing I didn't like was all you could see was the pre-service teacher, the person that field played. You couldn't see anything else that was going on in the classroom, particularly for that district. So that was just a unique challenge. And I don't know why they were so adamant about it, but I think it's probably the same district that doesn't like Google because they still think it's not secure,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, those privacy concerns are really, really interesting conundrums. And even getting into some schools, the IT department has schools on such lockdown that getting access. I have kind of a funny story. I was finishing up my dissertation and it was obviously a gaming piece. We had developed a game to integrate mathematics into instruction. And when I went into the first school, the entire structure collapsed because it was all the students getting online at one time. And so the whole district internet went down. And so that was a lesson learned, right? Thankfully, that was 20 years ago. God, I'm getting old now. But it was really interesting to see how things are moving and places are becoming more integrated with the use of tech, but it can still be a significant challenge. I see Katie's back. Did you want to talk about this next slide?
I would. There's a range of use and purposes for technology here in the state of Kansas. At time, our broadband is not available. So really excited to hear the background of that chat as I was able to rejoin. But we really want to understand and recognize that it's beyond access. We really want to talk about increasing technology in classrooms. Really goes to our instructional design, right? How are we assessing students? How are we supporting students and demonstrating their learning and perhaps places and goals that they have for themselves to improve their learning and their instruction? And so when we're using technology in teacher prep, and modeling the use of educational, Sandy's real close. That's great to hear, Sandy. When we're considering and using technology in our educator preparation or related service provider candidate preparation, we want to be thinking about how are we using tools that can allow for variability to collect, store, and organize data. Perhaps how are we sharing those data with our candidates, with others in our programs, and also with perhaps family members or students or stakeholders? And how can the data be used to engage and empower our students and our candidates to be able to adapt their instruction to perhaps increase the engagement and variability and supports within their instruction? And so we're wondering, from folks who have joined us synchronously, and if you're watching asynchronously, we'd love for you to connect with us in our community so that we can continue the conversation. What are the range of use or the types of tools and systems that you all currently use at your institutions for formative assessment, perhaps for summative assessment, and for instructional opportunities outside of that practicum or fieldwork experience?
While people are chatting, I can say that at UCF, we're really struggling with this area of assessment, and especially the formative stuff. You know, we have, if we can't get in virtually, we have a bunch of students, doctoral students typically, going out into the schools. And unfortunately in Florida right now, it's really difficult to get into schools. And so we're having challenges getting our folks fingerprinted to get in, or districts reluctant to open their doors to our students so that they come in and provide support for our teachers. But the other hand, we have difficulties with appropriate student or appropriate teachers to be mentors, because we have such an attrition rate of teachers in our schools. And so trying to find proper placements has been a really difficult piece. Debbie gives us a great
Yeah. I was going to say, Debbie, we could, if you have experiences with Google or Nearpod or Padlet, I'm not sure everyone with us perhaps may know something. I know Nearpod is something I personally don't have experience with, but I know a lot of folks do. If you're excited to share in the chat or pop in on your video, we'd love to hear about your experiences.
Yeah, and I'm close because I'm here in South Georgia. Like I'm about 11 miles from the Florida line. So I'm in Georgia, near South Georgia and Valdosta. We're very fortunate that we have a dean who is very forward thinking when it comes to technology. We have several Apple classrooms that we run with Apple. We have lots of iPad carts that are available. All of our undergraduates leave with a tier 1 Google certification level that they've passed, because we feel like that Google is so embedded in the K-12 world. A lot of times because they have, $100 Chromebooks that people buy for assessment. Not that I'm a Chromebook lover, however, but it is, in our region, Google has just taken over everything. And so we felt like that our candidates should leave having their foot, already in that door and understanding the Google world. And so they leave with that tier 1 certification. And so we teach a technology class to all of our undergraduates that show not just what tools are available, but really how to use them instructionally. If that's what we're talking about for formative, how to use those tools instructionally. We use there's that pedagogy wheel, the big pedagogy wheel, that we use that a lot to try to link up. Not that you just need to learn and have a zillion apps or whatever, but you find what really works and then you utilize it. So the thinking behind that and the thinking process for their students in the field is what they're trying to support, not that you're learning this new app or you're learning this, and it should be free. It shouldn't have to cost a lot of money. And so that's really where we try to push in. Nearpod's just a really cool a platform that you can embed very easily. Padlet, same thing, very easily to embed. And then again, we do a lot of the extensions with Google. But we try to teach all the platforms for Microsoft, Apple, and Google, just so that candidates have a better experience. Regardless of where they go, they can talk a little of the lingo and start to feel comfortable walking in with some tech knowledge.
So this is what I love. Oh, Debbie, thank you so much for taking that space to talk with us. So just in that 5 minutes, we connected Debbie, and Debbie, you're in Georgia, correct?
Yes, I'm in Georgia.
Okay, so Debbie's in Georgia, Sandy is in Southeast Missouri, and then I see Crystal, who has taught me a lot personally, and we have someone in the Carolinas. Just in 5 or 6 minutes, we were able to make a direct connection by folks in higher ed who perhaps are teaching similar content, or I'm hearing, oh my gosh, you have Google certifications. I'm not doing that. I want to learn about that. But let's also recognize all of the roles and responsibilities I have as a faculty member. I can go down the Google certification rabbit hole and then lose a ton of time and get excited and then be behind, or I can go, and this is our goal at Cizzle, is to be the facilitator or the hub. I can go into the community and I can say, okay, Crystal, Debbie, Sandy, y'all are doing some of these things I'm interested in. Can we set up a quick call? Can we talk within our community framework? Can we share emails? Can I directly go to someone who has expertise, who is a colleague of mine on a completely other part of the country, and say, fill my cup, you have this expertise and knowledge. I really think that our big goal with Cizzle is to facilitate the opportunity for this type of conversation where maybe we aren't always in a webinar. So I highly encourage everyone, one, thanks for sharing and being open to share in the chat and with video, but this is one of our goals as a center with Cizzle, is to provide these connections. And then a lot of the materials that we're about to share and resources come out of what our community members tell us that you want to focus on. And we have folks, even like Crystal is someone who's in our community, and she's actually led a call that I've been able to connect with before, solely based on the expertise she had bringing in. And so we're excited to have lots of folks joining us, it looks like from Angelica, who are joining the community. And so we want to be able to move through these challenges, think of them as getting your feet wet, and then we want to have these broader conversations. We know they're not going to end right now. So the third area or challenge that we have is in accessibility. And so we're just going to frame a series of questions around decisions about accessibility. And so I'd like for folks, you can do it in the chat if you feel, or maybe just some reflection. When we're discussing accessibility, who's affected by lack of accessibility at your college or institution? So I know for me, we have many students, and as folks are potentially sharing in the chat, or if you're asynchronous and you're reflecting, we have many students who are going into the field of education who have support needs, and it may be identified disability, or it may be, for me, sometimes my broadband's not there, or I'm not able to join at the moment, and so I need to join asynchronously and have access. And so we think about who's impacted by lack of accessibility. We also want to be really clear that accessibility impacts our students. It impacts who we are able to support to address our workforce shortage and also diversify and elevate the voices that we know are in our communities and should be in our classrooms. And Part C, early intervention home visiting supports, and then our related service provider supports. But we really want to think about inclusive design. And one of our goals as a tech center here at Cizzle is to be able to move our conversation and collaboration forward into how are we inclusively designing our classrooms, and then modeling that exactly with some of the comments that are in the chat, modeling that so that our educator preparation and our related service provider candidates are able to create classrooms that we pre-plan and design to be accessible and supportive, so that all students, based on identity characteristics, based on strengths and support needs, are able to participate and engage and move forward. And so we really see that accessibility is a number one goal, because it matters, because our great engagement and movement in our educator and related service provider candidate preparation is only going to occur if we are available to have everyone at the table. And so our next question is, who's responsible for ensuring accessibility at your institution or college? As folks are sharing, we have an office dedicated to that here at the University of Kansas. And then we have within our department, we have an individual who has expertise who we've been going to. I'm also fortunate, as folks are putting their responses in the chat, if they're synchronous or if you're thinking independently, asynchronously, we have a community a consumer advisory panel through our USED at the University of Kansas. And so we actually have a team devoted to accessibility and plain language research materials and recruitment materials. And we're able to have this group of folks with lived experience who are giving us feedback. It looks like some other folks have committees, and they also have students and instructors who are supporting. And so a third area that we are focusing on, and I want to be able to be cognizant of time as well, is that we want to be able to identify barriers to accessibility in your current institution, and then see how are we able to support skill development or knowledge or time, so that some universities might have centers for teaching and learning, and perhaps you can access those supports, or it looks like folks have educational access centers. And so what we're going to do moving through the rest of our presentation, as we're reflecting on these areas of innovation and support and access, is we're going to talk about some of the resources that Cizzle can provide to help support you at your individual institution and connect you with others. And so our solutions, let's just go with these three main areas that we brought up today. We talked about virtual practicums and feedback. We talked about instruction and assessment and technology. And we talked about accessibility. And so we have 4 areas where we provide opportunities as a hub, and as our goal with Cizzle as a tech center. We provide blogs. They're quick, easy access summaries of information that might describe a tool, it might describe a resource, provide some exemplars of how to use it, connect to peer-reviewed literature that supports the use or selection of that tool. And then we're able to connect to research briefs. We have webinars. We have Cizzles, which you're going to hear about in just a second from Trey. And then we have our community where, as you've heard us continue to mention, we have these great conversations going on. I see Crystal and Sarah and Sandy and Debbie sharing in the chat. Well, we have this space to do that synchronously and asynchronously beyond these times where we all come together, where we can put posts asking for resources, asking others for their expertise, sharing the expertise that we have. And I'm going to pop it over to Trey so he can briefly hit on Sizzles.
So first and foremost, this is a recruitment opportunity. We had this crazy idea at the center to combine cooking shows with technology, and how do we get out the word of integrating tech into our educational spaces and not make it the same old professional development. So you'll go onto the website on Cizzle, you'll see what's called Cizzles, and it's an opportunity for us, right? Who doesn't love we have folks across the country who are showing some of their delightful treats that they learned how to make as children or as adults, and they show you how to integrate technology. One of the last year's winners was Nick, who has a visual impairment, and showed us how does he make brownies using Alexa. And so we got to see how, a voice interactive AI can support the cooking techniques. My children and I cooked bread, leveraging the recipes coming from Alexa and Google. And we've had a whole host of folks across the country. I'm inviting you all, because you're all here, to share with us, how do you use technology in cooking? And we would love to show you and video you and share the good word and your yummy creations. We have a contest every year where our students will vote for the best one, and at CEC we award you with the coveted chef's hat that you'll get. We even give you an apron that has Cizzle and Sizzles. And so we're really excited to have you join us. If you're at CEC this year, please stop by our booth. We're going to showcase a lot of the wonderful recipes. We're throwing the idea that we should have a cookbook maybe coming out of this thing and share with you. So again, come join us. I hope that you reach out. I might reach out to you anyway and say, hey, would you like to do this? So please join us. And then Angelica is going to talk, how do you connect with us?
Yeah, so I'll close up really quick. Connect with us, please. I've seen so many conversations going on in the chat that we'd love to carry over into our community on our social media. Like us, and you'll see weekly posts. We recently started hot takes, Cizzle hot takes. So that's where Trey, Jamie, and I, or other people on our part of our Cizzle group, share some hot takes of what's going on right now. Since AI has been so popular, we've been recording a lot of videos and posting a lot of blogs about that. But soon we'll be talking about mobile learning in the classroom and how to integrate that, and have some hot takes on that coming out with a series. So follow us so you can see those resources, you can connect, you can share, you can give us some feedback on things you'd like to see in the future. We'd love to hear from our community. That's what really pushes us to write and to continue the technology push through Cizzle. So make sure you join us on our social media pages. And that's all we have.
All right, Sarah, I know you have some great things you want to share with us.
Just a few remarks, and then we will actually keep the Zoom open for another 25 minutes for anyone who wants to stay on and continue the conversation with you all. So the first thing I have is that we have uploaded a handout with links to the Cizzle resources that were discussed today in the chat. And we hope that you'll use all these resources in your courses and reach out to Cizzle if you want to learn more. We're also uploading a link to the OSEP funded national centers if you want to check those out. And finally, we're going to also post a link to the next IRIS Prep Talk, which is on April the 14th at 1 p.m. and we'll be featuring the National Center on Improving Literacy. So thank you for joining us today, and feel free to stay on and continue the discussion.